ambassador for the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. The ambassador, prior to joining the Afghan Foreign Service, had been a field officer for Red Cross, a ministerial staffer, a consultant in Brussels, and a university economics lecturer. In 2007, he was awarded a Fulbright scholarship, by which he gained his MA in International Affairs at the Texas A&M University. And he later studied at Garmisch in Germany and in Hawaii. His undergraduate degrees were obtained in India. Prior to his appointment as ambassador to Australia, he was Director General of the 5th Political Division, that's the US, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, in the Afghan Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He is fluent in Farsi and Darul, in Pashto and English, and possesses a basic fluency in French and Arabic. He likes playing soccer.
Thank you very much. And let me begin by thanking the Aussie Forum and the organizers of this amazing gathering today. Good lunch, which we really enjoyed. And in Farsi, we have this proverb which we say that, awal ta'am, ba'd kalam. I mean that, first you eat and then talk. And we did that, so I'm already full-fledged for an hour about Afghanistan. And the Excellencies, my colleagues, Ambassador Abdullah, Admiral, my good friend, Karen, Nicholas, Bill, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to see that we are talking about the way forward in Afghanistan, because we cannot go ahead, we cannot move away or ahead until if we are basically stuck in a page. So if you want to read the next page, we have to go to that page, and we should lift the page that we are reading behind. And I think that should be the case in Afghanistan. We are entering a new decade. We are entering a new era in Afghanistan. It's always better to look forward than to look backward. Since I have very short time to cover, a lot of grounds, I have kind of quickly take you through three main topics, and then hopefully if there are any details required, I will be here for question and answer. Number one is I just want to tell you briefly on what's going on right now. If there is any strategy in Afghanistan, because sometimes people ask this question: that is there any strategy? I will tell you, yes, there is a strategy, and that is basically since 2009. So what we regard before 2009 was confusion and lack of a strategy, and the international community's interest or engagement being diverted to Iraq. So since 2009, and this strategy begins with the second term of President Carter and his inauguration speech, when in November of 2009, he announced three basic policies for his second term. And number one was the Afghanization of security. Number two was peace and reintegration of the combatants, insurgents, and other groups. And number three was a national development strategy based on Afghanistan's priorities, because the development before that was kind of donor-driven, and people invested where they liked. So what we wanted was to finish that chaos in development and to bring that under the priority of the Afghan. What happened after that, following these three major concepts? So probably the only meaningful US strategy vis-a-vis Afghanistan was in December 2009, again, a speech by President Obama in West Point Academy, where he announced this Africa strategy, and he somehow rationalized the goals of the US and international community in Afghanistan and the region to, bringing it down from the rhetoric of international war and terror, civilization versus uncivilized people, and all that stuff, to something which was more to our understanding achievable, and that was to distinguish between the terrorism and the Islamic world altogether, because these are the big confusion which created and also it blurred the goals of the war against terror. So he limited to something achievable. He lowered the threshold to a more realistic goals of disrupting, dismantling, and defeating Al-Qaeda, which we have seen in the past 2 years some good successes in this three major goals. And then following that was the 2010 NATO summit in Lisbon, where this idea of Afghanization of security, which was emanating out of Afghanistan, was put in a nicer package, and we created, a new name for it, because international communities is very good at creating new names and new acronyms and all that stuff. So we have the transition process, and transition and security to the Afghan forces, which was basically something that both the Afghan people, because after 10 years of the war, they want to see the international community slowly leaving Afghanistan. And on the other hand, the war-weary public of different NATO and non-NATO member countries, they also want their sons and daughters to be back to the place. So on that, the policy of transition was formed, and we agreed that there should be a transition starting in 2010, 11, and moving forward to 2014, and by that time, the Afghan security forces will be enabled to take charge of security. And I think that's going on very well. And we, last month, President Karzai announced the third tranche, which includes Oruzgan, where then most of the diggers, the Aussies, are there, and that means that they will start coming back home. That's a good news for you. So with that, there was 75% of the Afghanistan under the Afghan forces. So the Afghan forces will actually take care of 75% of Afghanistan in terms of the security. So in short, and then I'm not going to this, what the NATO summit did, because this NATO summit a few days back basically reviewed the achievements or the progress of the transition, and then also committed another $4.1 billion for continuation of support to the Afghan National Security Forces beyond 2014, and this was what we actually have asked for, because we have now a big army in police, and for sustainment of that beyond 2014, when we will have a very reduced international presence in Afghanistan, we needed international support, and we got that, and on this occasion I will thank the Australian government, which actually fulfilled its commitment and responded very positively to the demand of the Afghan government, supporting $100 million a year for our national security forces and $165 million each year in development budget. So to make it short, so there are currently there are three-pronged policies of transition, reconciliation, reintegration, and regional international partnership. And part of that regional international partnership is that we signed a strategic partnership with the United States, one with Australia in Chicago a few days back, and then with Germany, with some other countries. And it means that it gives us a guarantee for this decade, which we call it a decade of transformation, 2014 and 2024, that Afghanistan will not be abandoned again the way it was in the 1990s, and we are rising, and we will not rise alone. So I talk a little bit about transition. The other policy, which I said, is the peace and reconciliation, and that everyone knows that most of insurgencies, the way forward in insurgencies, or solving the problem of insurgency, but not always possible. It's not always possible on the battleground. So most of the insurgencies are dealt with at the political level. So you have to have this door open for the people who accept the Afghan constitution, who accept the basic rights of men and women in that country, and they also accept the achievements of the past 10 years. They are free to come in and to join this government, contest elections, and you find a way for themselves in the system and live like any other Afghan. And then the partnerships that I talk a little bit about is, again, a sort of guarantee that there won't be a civil war coming again, and there won't be an abandonment in that country. So moving from what is the policy or what's happening right now is to the challenges of this policy. And of course, people will tell me that, yeah, all these policies are good one, but it's the devil is in the details of how you're going to do the transition. What will happen if there's an escalation of violence after 2014? What will happen if this reconciliation is not working properly? And what happens if the international community is not really consistent with their partnership? I think these are the challenges that we are facing. And as an economist, if I wanted to optimize and simplify these challenges, bring them to a level where it's kind of solvable in terms of creating some formulas and applying mathematics, which unfortunately is not possible in the science of international relations and political science, is that there are three categories of challenges we are facing. One is domestic, other is regional, and the other is international. On the domestic side, the major challenge is of how we are going to implement a political transition, meaning the election which is in front of us. And that's the biggest challenge. So that will be, a game breaker, game maker, and what happened domestically. The regional challenge we face is the reconciliation and reintegration, and the regional cooperation among different countries in this region. So every region thinks that this morning I saw this nice poet by Allama Iqbal Lahori. Most of the people from that region know him, which he said that, talking about the regional cooperation in Afghanistan, he said that the Asia چون پیکر آب و گل است ملت افغان در آن پیکر دل است از گشاد او گشاد آسیا از فساد او فساد آسیا. Meaning that Asia is like a body like a human body made of water and clay, and the Afghan nation is like a heart to that body. And if the heart is in ruin, the heart is in danger, the whole body is in danger. And if the heart is free and prosperous, the whole region will prosper. I think that's basically what happens in terms of regional cooperation, and we all countries in that region understand that the way forward is cooperation, being it in political cooperation or being it the economic cooperation, which will open up our ways and our trade and everything else. So with this, I think now my time is over. I had a lot of things to say. I only finished 2 of my pages, but hopefully I'll get to more of this, probably in question and answers. But I can give you there is a lot of optimism in that country, and that optimism comes from our people. People that the recent survey shows that 80% of them do not want a return of Taliban, a government like that, and 53% of them, it's Asia Foundation survey, you can find the internet, 53% of them still think that they can change government's decision. So with that, with that asset in front of us, I think we are very hopeful that this decade of transformation will transform that country. And with this number of 8.5 million children, boys and girls going to school, and 10-year time will give them enough time to graduate and to be the leaders of that country, I think that will be a real decade of transformation. But for that, we always need international and regional support. Thank you very much.